Greetings, Minecrafters, and welcome to another Minecraft discussion on all things well-being. My name is Dr. Kimberly Quinn, and I am still in Medford, Massachusetts. Just one more day, and now I'm in the computer room because the breakfast nook is popping. And so, so today we're going to talk about, which actually get back to the thought control thing, right? This is super important. We're going to talk about there are no justified resentments, right? And so that lands right on top of the foundation of Mindcraft, which has become the boss of your brain, because we can't feel resentful and be brought down if we're not thinking resentful thoughts. Like, it can't happen. It's all about the brain. And so sometimes when I say to my Minecrafters, if they say, oh, you know, I'll say we are what we think, and they're like, oh no, we are what we eat. Well, think about that. If you don't have a brain, right? So sometimes I'll say, you know, Jonathan, if we remove Jonathan's brilliant mind out of his skull with kindness and anesthesia and put it up on the wall, in a jar of formaldehyde, what would he be thinking? And they'll kind of look around like nothing. What would he be feeling? Nothing, therefore doing nothing. We are what we think. And so really what I want to talk about today, I'd like to discuss is there are no justified resentments. And it doesn't mean that whatever hurt was done to you or whatever offenses, it could be the biggest, hugest offenses that are totally legit, but we still can't justify hanging on to them. And people have such a hard time with this. It's like these resentments are super glue sticking to our rib cage, and like, why, think about why are we hanging on to this. It's very important to think about why are we hanging on to this, because people have reasons that it's hard for them to let go. And one of the biggies is that often people think that that by letting go of the resentment, that the person gets a pass. Like, if I continue to resent them and how they ruined my life, how they stole my childhood, if it's something huge like that, how I had to be the mommy, and at 10, let's say, and emotionally speaking, in an addicted home, I got robbed of a childhood, and we somehow think that by letting go of the resentment, those heavy duty barbells, we've talked about it, that it somehow not only gives that person a pass, but somehow, we think in some way maybe we'll get our childhood back that way or something. And I remember way back when I was therapizing, a lot of this stuff happens with addictive families. It doesn't have to be an addictive family, because it can be dysfunction of, come from dysfunction or hurtfulness or offenses of any sort. However, shame is kind of like wall-to-wall carpeting in the addicted household. I don't know how else to say it. It also is kind of the trim around the windows and the shingles on the roof, and that sort of thing. But it often, adult children of alcoholics too will hang on to anger and resentment, even if that alcoholic parent has left this earth. And when we really process that, journal writing can work with this, and also writing that parent a letter, even though you obviously can't mail it, they often realize that they're hanging on to the anger because that's all they had. And realizing, like, we're talking about dealing with loss, I think it was yesterday or today, maybe even it was earlier, I don't know, but it was recently. And dealing with that loss, and they often think, oh, there isn't a loss because I didn't like the bastard anyway, right? But it is. It's still a loss, even if they were a toxic. They were toxic, and you still, the role of father or mother, or sister or brother or whatever, a partner, it's still a loss, even if it's just complicated. It's a complicated loss. But often people hang on to anger and resentment because they go so well together long after the person is deceased and checked out of here. And it's because there's an attachment to what could have, should have, would have been. It doesn't make a lot of logical sense if you think about it. But if this is you, it doesn't have to make logical sense. Like, why am I hanging on to this anger with this guy who, he was physically in the house, but he wasn't any kind of father, or she was physically in the house, but she wasn't any kind of mother? Why am I hanging on to this? And it's really important to discuss, well, preferably discuss it with a therapist. That would be really great. And also the rest of your support system, and to give yourself the permission, to feel how you feel. We also talked about that. To feel is to heal. And then the thing is to shift out of that after you validate your feeling, like catch and release fishing, right? Catch it, feel the slime, a little catfish, little prickly things on them. You know, feel that resentment because they're prickly. Anger is super prickly. And then throw it back in after you validate your feelings. You don't want to live there. This is what we're talking about. Because when we hang on to anger and resentment, which goes so well together again, we're walking around with like a weight belt. It's in barbells, or picture yourself with a weight belt underneath your clothes that no one else can see. So you're trying to, you know, walk up whatever street, maybe you're shopping for the holidays, you're just going on a nice walk in the woods, and you're dragging around a 25-pound weight belt that no one else can see. When you can shed that stuff, it's just so important. So it's important to look at what the attachment is, because God forbid, even if something is a, you know, huge violator, like a sick adult with a child growing up, that it does not diminish what happened to you or give anybody a pass. It just really literally sets you free. And there are no justified resentments. We talked about the marionette thing. There's probably a word for that little stick crossy thing, and you know, when you pull it, they dance around and they kick up their feet and kick up their hands, and so really it's like the resentment is that little crisscrossy thing, you know, pulling and being moved around and making us dance the jig, because that's how resentment works. And let's see, so the past thing, power. We often, I don't know if we're consciously thinking this, we often think if we remain angry and resentful, even if you don't have the anger piece. They do often go together, but they don't have to. We often, it's such a disillusion. Disillusion, it's an illusion, I think, one of those. With anger, because when we hang on to anger, it's like we think we're hanging on to our power, and if we give up that anger and resentment, that we're giving up our power, when it's actually the reverse that is true. We actually, letting go is so empowering, we take our power back. The authentic self doesn't have a desire in the world to be weighted down like that, either with a weight belt or carrying around barbells. And that's the ego trying to hang on to that anger, because we get some kind of a dope fix. And we don't do anything as human beings unless there's payoff in it, nothing. And people get confused that payoff has to be positive, and no, it does not. Self-punishment is a huge reinforcer for behavior. It's like, whap, that'll teach me. And if you grew up in an addicted home, or not, doesn't have to be, where you weren't treated well, we can become very comfortable with not being treated well, and we actually go looking for that unconsciously, you know, throughout our adulthood. I mean, this is no secret to anybody, right? This is why, you know, when people are in codependent relationships that involve being mistreated and abused, and all different kinds of ways to be codependent, they keep, you know, we'll break up with this one and that one, and lo and behold, there's one showing up at the door wearing a different outfit. Like, it's not going to change until the work is done in here. And with letting go of the anger and resentment, that's important too, because that negativity leaks like battery acid into everything else. Like, literally our whole lives, our new relationships. So it's not like resentment is in its little box on the shelf, kind of like those little storage thing you put shoes in, like in college. It's all, here's my resentment box, I'm going to keep it contained in there, and then go out in the world and spread love and kindness. No, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't mean you're not a good person. It means you're a good person, or you're a good person, or just would benefit from letting go of resentment, because resentment's just like a dark force, and it's kind of attached to self-loathing, shame, and blame, and that's a whole cycle, and sometimes hatred. So it's not like I'm just gonna hate this person who sexually molested me as a child, and I'm not gonna hate all these other people. It does not work like that. So it's just so important to realize that resentment is battery acid, and that you are worth more than that. You are worth so much more than that. And when we make a conscious choice to let it go, we are freer. And here's how we let it go. I told you about the Claudia Black definition. Because if we're talking about forgiveness, which in the secular sense, often people think, again, it's give a past thing, it's whatever. No, we're attached to something that was like happened forever ago. And we often think, ooh, whatever, forgiveness is about forgetting. No, it isn't. Claudia Black said very clearly back in the 80s, because I watched her myself at St. Mike's way back then, what a little power dynamo she was and still is. And so she said forgiveness has absolutely nothing to do with forgetting. Forgiveness has nothing to do with forgetting. It has everything to do with remembering and choosing to move forward. And remembering and choosing to move forward, that is how we let go, and that's how it stays. And also, just like we were talking about grief before as a process, letting go is a process too. So if we kind of do like this, like we forgive a lot and then we bounce back a little bit, just be patient with yourself. It's also a choice. It's a choice to start with the process and stick with the process, right? We can become aware, we make the choice and the commitment, I want to let this go, and then we keep at it. And not to judge ourselves if we kind of fall off the forgiveness wagon a little bit. We just get back on. This is very, very important to just stick with it and be patient with ourselves while we choose to move forward. And I know that, like years ago, because I am thankfully way past this now. I feel as free as a free bee. Honestly, I feel great in my skin. It's taken a long while to get here, though. The idea is not to be in any kind of high horse with that, because that isn't who I am, for one, and I speak the truth mainly. I'll say mainly, number one. I just said that all wrong. Truth is, I live and reside in the truth. So, since I live and reside in the truth, I will tell you that it's been hard. It's been a lot of years of really, working at this. And I went through a thing where I'm like, wow, if I weren't living out of my car and couch hopping, during the end of high school and college, just think of the grades I could have gotten. Okay, well, I did that for a little bit. I'm like, you know what? At a certain point, maybe that's all true, but who gives a shit? Because that isn't what happened. My grades looked like a lasagna noodle. I did great when I was interested, not so much when I wasn't interested, which is my fast mind. And then I had a lot of constant drama with my extremely abusive mother, mostly. Just extremely, extremely abusive, where I just, it's very difficult to manage external deadlines, homework, papers, projects, tests, when you've got all that noise, that abusive, toxic noise going on outside of you. That is all true, though it's also very much over, and it doesn't matter. And the thing is, all those adverse moments, sometimes at events, all that adversity is also kind of woven itself into who I am today. And for this, I'm very grateful. Does that mean I want to relive it? No. Does it mean I'm very grateful for who I've become and everything that's come out of it, and all the good relationships that I've made because of what happened, like kind of seeking out good people. Oh my gosh, I wouldn't trade any of them in. Any of them. I have the greatest people in my life. I mean, in addition to my family, obviously. The most wonderful people. Some of them many of them I would even call angels, actually. So the gratitude thing also helps let go of resentments, because when we're filled with gratitude, filled with what is going right, with who is going right, okay, all these wonderful people, and all in our health and the wealth of all that good stuff going on in our lives, it's very difficult to hang on to resentment because there's no room. Resentment and gratitude cannot coexist. They're like opposite, like putting, and then they push apart, poles of magnets or something. That wouldn't work with that, because north and south would attract. Anyway, that was not a good example. So resentment and gratitude cannot coexist. They just cannot. So when we walk around with a grateful mind, leads to a grateful heart, and then pushes resentment right out the back door, gone. And when we practice this, letting go of anger and resentment, the better we get at it. It's like anything else. What we practice, we inevitably get good at. Whether it's playing the violin, speaking Italian, robbing banks, whatever we practice, we get better at. So this comes down to the thought control, right? We can't feel resentful, we can't feel angry unless we're thinking resentful thoughts and thinking angry thoughts. When we think grateful thoughts, we feel grateful, and there is no room for any of the rest of this crapola. That is the main message. Okay, this is Kimberly Quinn signing off from Medford, Massachusetts. Have a mindful, resentment-free day.